Welcome back, Heat Seekers. We're here with your Week 11 running back tiers. Let's get to it. RB1 overall. At this point in the season, what's there to say? These guys are all on the field, RB1s, they're must starts. Any concerns here? I know Alvin's coming back from injury, but it looks like he should be okay, and so is Chubb as well. What you got?
Other than that, really, I mean, Jonathan Taylor's going up against a tough defense in Buffalo. I think with the passing game work, he's been getting a clear RB1. Being the RB1 overall, I think is a steep hill to climb this week with that matchup, even though we've seen strange things happen this year.
It seems like every week something strange has been happening this season.
Yep.
All right, AJ Dillon, we got a newcomer. And the funny thing is, most of this season, AJ Dillon's been playable. He's been involved in the offense very similarly to how they used Jamal Williams in the past, but he's looked better doing it, quite honestly. Do you feel going into this week's matchup with him being their top RB that we're going to see just this massive boom type game from him? Or are there any concerns for you with him now being the main ball carrier?
I think expecting him just to be Aaron Jones and to fall in this situation or potentially be a top 6 guy is expecting a lot. Being an RB1 overall, I don't think is a stretch. When you look at these guys, we're running it back with most of these players being in this sort of zone most of the year here, and he's the only real newcomer. The positive for him is that if they do try to keep running the ball, there isn't really a whole lot behind him. They have guys that they're looking at signing off the streets. They took a test run at Kerryon Johnson, things like that. A lot of weird things going on there because they just don't have people. KJ Hill, there's a Kylan Hill, but Kylan Hill, either way, neither one of them is playing running back for the Packers this week. And with Aaron Jones not playing, he really is a guy. That's why they, I think, took him early, is to have another second running back. They knew they weren't going to be keeping Jamal Williams, who went to your Lions around. So we'll see what he's made of, but you do run the risk of the Packers just deciding to go with a pass-heavy attack against the Vikings.
Yep, and he's made out of flesh and bone like the rest of us. So we are up to our RB1 tier. Now, obviously, we've got a lot of different things going on here. So we got a Saquon coming back from injury. We've got a newcomer to our conversations in Michael Carter, who's been involved in the passing game and been there. They're do it all back as of recently. Uninjured James Robinson coming back. When you look at these RB1s, how do you feel about this group? Is there anyone that doesn't look like they should be at the party at this point?
Yeah, so Robinson coming back from injury is concerning. Something else nagging and sound pop on the report yesterday, which would have been Wednesday for those of you keeping track at home with when this is released. That certainly is concerning if whether or not he's going to be able to play a full game or even play. Michael Carter with the news of Joe Flacco playing, I think that does lower his likely outcome a little bit more. You had Mike White or Josh Johnson or even Zach Wilson more likely passing it down to him rather than taking shots downfield. We know that Flacco is not afraid to pass downfield to try to either get that completion or the pass interference call. It's going to benefit someone more like Corey Davis more than Michael Carter. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then quite honestly, I'm not disputing Saquon's talent at all. And there have been running backs that have had success against Tampa this year, but him coming back from the injury with how Tampa's been doing against the run, that is a little bit concerning. Now, they do have some guys banged up on that defensive front that may help him out. I know Vita Vea had left in the last game, and I don't know his status off the top of my head. But if you're seeing more of those guys along that front of Tampa Bay trend towards being out, maybe he does belong up in here. But it's just a tricky matchup coming off injury for him.
Yeah, I was just trying to look and see.
And with being it on Monday night, you don't have a whole lot of other options unless you want to go pick up Ronald Jones or Giovanni Bernard off waivers and throw them in there and hope and pray.
No, thank you. My guess, and I'm just trying to pull up the injury report. I want to make sure we get you the most pertinent, up-to-date information on that game. Jason Pierre-Paul participated. Everyone else should be good to go. So, yeah, Saquon's one of those that I think you need to consider as an RB2 and not get your hopes up that he's a high-end piece this week just because that Tampa defense is pretty good. RB2s, what are we looking at? There's some safer plays in here. When you first look at this list, it looks a little terrifying. You're like, ooh, Mark Ingram leads off this list. This can't be good. But fairly safe play, even with Alvin Kamara back. I'm sure they'll want to continue to use him. He seems to have fit back in pretty well. James Conner with Chase Edmonds being down is pretty solid play. Devonta Freeman's been the lead back and looking pretty solid there as well. Is there anything that stands out to you as you look at this kind of tier as a whole that strikes you as odd or maybe something that you aren't a big fan of in this grouping?
I do find it amusing, odd, whatever you want to call it, that the three main sort of backs right now for the Patriots are all listed here. And we do look at these guys, best case scenario for these players available with the information we have at the time. If Cordarrelle Patterson does end up playing and he's deemed healthy enough, hopefully he'll be able to get you that RB2 value. He hasn't had those sort of consistent big weeks we've seen seen out of him, and being banged up will probably limit that as well. So that's why he's a little bit lower than he has been. Running backs for the Patriots, you're never completely sure what you're getting, and they do eat into each other a bit.
Damien Harris is healthy last I checked.
Same sort of thing with the Raiders running backs. Either one of them can have that potential big week, and that's why you see them lower than if it was just them themselves as the main person. So
right. No, for sure. All right. The flex plays, now it's starting to get a little shaky.
Yeah.
Feel good about probably JD McKissic, probably Tony Pollard, and then Alex Collins. Obviously, Chris Carson would have been in this spot as well. Like we had Chris Carson based on our rankings this week here. Is there anyone on this list that you feel super strong about?
Super strong about? No. If you're talking about the guys that you mentioned, McKissic and Pollard, I think Boston Scott is sort of up in that group. He's had at least 7 touches and 25 yards, I think, anyway, in the past 4 games since they've had that switch up at running back with Miles Sanders out, and it doesn't sound like Sanders is probably playing this week. So again, for this week, yeah, he is splitting, but that's a situation with any of these guys at this point. Yeah, that's really it. I'm not ready to throw my hat in here that feeling great about any of these other guys. If Alex Collins is the lead back, I feel fine because he's going to get touches there too. It just really ends up being a matter of, all right, yes, he's getting touches, but what is he going to do with the situation he has? Arizona's not a terrible matchup, but it's
not
hard
the best
to
either.
see. Yeah. Oddly enough, I do think it does end up mattering for someone like that what's happening on the other side of the field. If Kyler is playing and deemed healthy, and they're more likely to have more up-tempo style game with him than the injured also, and maybe not playing Colt McCoy or their third stringer. If that third string quarterback is in there, we've seen it this season already, but I have a hard time believing he's just going to come in and be lights out in his first ever start and probably playing time in a real NFL game, which would lend more to Seattle looking to run the ball too and keep it close. And so,
right. And going to the other side of things, I see Falcons here in RB2 and flex. Cordarrelle is a game time decision tonight. The game is tonight. This will be released at some point on Thursday. And how do we feel? Well, Gallman had a pretty solid last week, but what does this look like? The Patriots are one of those teams that tends to take somebody out of the game. Do we get nervous playing any Falcons running back if it's not Patterson?
I think you're going to get just a mess of a split if it's not Patterson. And I don't think either one of those two guys, Davis or Gallman, are going to be used in the passing game, clearly like Patterson had been with. He sort of is that hybrid / wide receiver running back, and you don't really have that with Mike Davis or Gallman. They're more closely aligned with your throwback running backs. I'd feel safer with Mike Davis as they paid him, and he's shown it more consistently in the past, but we know that doesn't necessarily mean anything either.
Yeah, very true. All right, there's one player on this list that I feel comfortable telling anybody probably gets something, and it's Ty Johnson. But even with Joe Flacco, that I can't say that I'm super excited about that because Flacco's not the same type of dump down quarterback as the last couple guys. So what do you make of the sleeper tier?
Jeremy McNichols is going to get something just because they're going to be using a group of running backs at that position, and he'll have probably get you a couple passes. The other one that I feel more confident in than a lot of people, I think, is Jeff Wilson. Just with Elijah Mitchell had that finger surgery, and it sounds like he's trending towards playing. I think there's a higher chance for issues to come up or them to go back to that committee approach that they had before, and Jeff Wilson has shown the ability to do it if he's healthy. So if I had to pick one out of the group, he'd be the one that I was looking at.
We're here to help you guys. Rotoheat.com, and we'll talk to you again soon.